Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. We have a tremendous episode for you this week. We have Bryan Curtis from The Ringer to cover all of the latest sports media news. There's been a lot of it this week. Jimmy Johnson retires from Fox. Around the Horn gets canceled at ESPN. Bill Belichick and North Carolina first were set to appear on Hard Knocks. Now that's not going to happen. More on the MLB-ESPN fallout. Get into all that and more with Bryan Curtis from The Ringer. And then Sal Licata is back this week for the Traina Thoughts segment after missing last week. And we read reviews for this podcast from the month of February that you guys left on Apple. Sal gives us a report from his Disney trip, and we discuss the John Cena heel turn. So a lot going on in this podcast. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and make sure you leave a review if you do. All right, before we get to it, in case you missed it, we had a great episode last week. Jay Billis from ESPN was on. Jay was tremendous. So if you missed it, I highly recommend giving it a listen. Also, we had a bonus podcast this week with MJF from AEW, one of the most entertaining wrestlers in the history of pro wrestling at just 28 years old. And he took me on a roller coaster ride for that interview. So if you're a wrestling fan at all, listen to MJF. Came out earlier this week. And again, Jay Billis was last week. So make sure you check that one out. And make sure you subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Subscribe, give it a review on Apple, rate it on Apple. It all helps tremendously. All right, let's get to it. Bryan Curtis from The Ringer on all the latest sports media news, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts, all right here, right now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, SI Media podcast regular, always a great episode when he joins us from The Ringer and from the Press Box podcast. He is Bryan Curtis. Bryan, how's it going?
Always a great honor to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. You have an open invite. You know that. And we're in that little lull for sports, but not sports media news. The sports media news seems to
no way.
Seems to keep going.
Goes on forever.
Yep. So there's three big items from the past week. There's Jimmy Johnson's retirement, the Belichick Hard Knocks stuff, and Around the Horn. We'll start with Around the Horn because that happened Tuesday. ESPN officially sent out a press release canceling the show after 23 years. I find the lack of information about why the show was canceled bizarre and interesting because, and I wrote this line in my column on Wednesday, TV networks don't cancel shows that are successful. It's not what their business is. So what is your reaction to ESPN canceling Around the Horn after 23 years?
Not surprised, because we've seen nothing from Jimmy Pitaro's ESPN, and maybe even a little bit before that, other than the fact that these shows just don't have a place at that network anymore. There's not room for them. There's room for Stephen A. There's room for McAfee. But other than PTI, which may be grandfathered in until Tony and Mike don't want to do anymore, I just don't think ESPN is interested in that kind of show. Even if it, as you say, is successful in terms of ratings, in terms of audience. And
right.
It's amazing, by the way, that show has been on the air for 20 odd years. Like, wow. I mean, I remember when that was the new show on the block. Oh my gosh, Woody Page is on my TV every day. But I just don't think that's part of ESPN's recipe anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I did a quick look. Their ratings seem to be on par with Get Up. And, they don't get the ratings, obviously, that PTI do, but the PTI does. But, like FS1 would kill to get a show that had those numbers that Around the Horn had. It just seems mysterious. Like, they don't say why. And if, low ratings isn't the reason, usually you'd need to know. Now you're saying it doesn't fit what they do today, but they also haven't announced anything. They're going to have SportsCenter fill in until they figure it out. Now it tells me, the show's going away May 23rd, which is Memorial Day weekend. That means, and then SportsCenter is going to fill that time slot. Seems to me there'll be some sort of football show coming in September. That's just speculation. They haven't said that, but a little common sense isn't that difficult to figure out.
Yeah, I just think, if you look at ESPN as we get to over the top, like this is the big moment this fall, right? ESPN is going to become both a cable network and a streaming entity.
Yeah.
So, and to me, the big question has always been when we go into the streaming world, what is daytime ESPN? Like, what is it? We're just used to having things that are on because ESPN needs to fill hours during the day. And other than, again, the big personalities they built around, like Stephen A., we know he's going to do whatever he wants. Pat McAfee, we know he's going to do whatever he wants. I think what you've seen is them basically prune all that stuff away and say, hey, it can be Sports Center, it can be shoulder programming for the NFL and one of our partners that we need to keep happy. But that's kind of all we're interested in. And I
Yeah.
think, part of that is the money they're spending elsewhere. Part of that's Pataro's vision. And part of that is also looking forward to streaming and being like, is there just room for this stuff? Is this something that people are going to seek out even though TV's different, right? Streaming service at the hour that Around the Horn comes on, I can watch 10,000 things. I can watch White Lotus again if I want to right now. I do not have to watch this thing that's on. It's a totally different world. So are we just pruning all that stuff away and saying, hey, it's games, it's a couple of big personalities, and it's shoulder programming around games?
Yeah. And it is amazing because, like we said, it's been on for 23 years. The ratings are still decent. And I've said this, I may have even said it to you, but I know I've said this on this podcast a couple of times over the past year. The underrated story in all of sports media is the success of Pardon the Interruption. I mean, their ratings are like almost double of what Around the Horn is, and Around the Horn leads into PTI. For that show to still do the numbers it does is remarkable.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I think they're the one exception, because we've seen everything else, go wasted high noon, everything else go away. But they're the one guys that maybe they just get to do it as long as they want.
Yeah. I find the Tony Reali angle on this interesting because he's been the host there for 23 years. So he's not one of these guys, usually in sports media, people have like 5 jobs. Like you see people look at McAfee. He's in the WWE while he's doing this daily show. He's on game day. Stephen A is all over the place. Reali has really just stuck to Around the Horn, and maybe he doesn't get credit just in terms of like you could see him hosting any pregame show on any network or any, like he is as smooth and polished as it gets. So, very interesting to see what happens. Or if he stays at ESPN, is there a role for him there? Who knows? But I'll be very interested. I'm more intrigued by the Reali angle of it than the Around the Horn angle in a way.
You keep calling him reality, like we have reality TV and reality TV. There's a distinct thing. I agree with you, because wasn't it originally Around the Horn was going to be a program for Max Kellerman to do his thing.
He was the original host,
and he was as much a star as the guys in the boxes, as the Woodies and the Jay Mariottis and that whole original Tim Kalishaw, that whole original gang that was on there. Yeah. But then what you're saying with Reali is different, right? He just wanted to do Around the Horn. It was not a launching pad necessarily, or at least in his eyes, for something else.
And it helped that he had the PTI connection as Stat Boy. It's okay. Don't worry about the lights.
Okay.
Way more people will listen to this than watch it. So Brian's lights keep going out in his Spotify office.
I know.
But we're just gonna go through it. We're just gonna keep rolling.
It's bad news for my prospects. Let me tell you.
That's okay. All right, so let's switch gears now. One of the other big stories of the week was Jimmy Johnson announcing his retirement, which I said at the time that Super Bowl pregame show where they did the tribute was so bizarre. And then like a month later he retires. So
and then we heard right after the tribute, didn't we, that he might not retire?
Yeah, like they didn't know. They were like, "Oh, we just want in case he does or something." My issue was they did that tribute at like 5:30 or 5:45.
Yeah.
Which how could anyone watching that not think he was retiring? Like, that might have played better at 2:00, but
yeah.
What do I know about TV?
So I got a bunch of Jimmy Johnson thoughts for you.
Yeah, I want to hear them.
He was one of the great negotiators in sports television. So 1994, first ever year of Fox Sports as a thing. First ever year of Fox NFL Sunday. They want him to be on the show. And he has a competing offer from ESPN to go on their pregame show. Wouldn't that have been interesting if that had come to pass? And he goes to Fox and says, listen, I'll be on your new pregame show, but I have to do this many weeks a year from my home in Miami. Now, this is way before Zoom. This is 1994. This is way before computers as we know them today. And he's like, I'm going to be sitting on my porch. And of course, Fox is like, wait a second, this is a brand new show. We just got the NFL. This is one day a week we're asking. He's like, actually, I'm going to be in Miami. And they said, okay. And Jimmy would do that year after year, like he would just go to them and be like, this is exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. And this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And this is way before, like Kirk Herbstreit's bringing his dog everywhere. Again, this is when announcers didn't have the kind of power they have now.
Right. Well, I mean, that was a huge name for, when Fox got the NFL in 94, obviously they bring in Madden and Summerall. They're looking, and they still do it to this day, that Fox is all about the big name. And at that time, Jimmy Johnson, coming off of what he did in Miami at the college level, and then obviously Dallas, that was as big as it got. We talked about Reali and Around the Horn, 23 years. That Fox NFL pregame show, Howie, Terry, and Jimmy, the entire time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Minus Jimmy's years with the Dolphins. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking 30 years where three guys, there was a Ronnie Lott year or two in there, if you remember that. Yep. There was Chris Collinsworth was on that show. Kind of forget about that now. But for 30 years, it was three guys pretty much. And that to me is that show. Like, if you're going to say like, hey, we're going to miss Jimmy Johnson's football analysis, I don't really think that's the case for most people. But like, we're going to miss that these three friends are on the show every week together. That's what hits me.
Right. I will say, though, when that show launched in 94, I remember, I mean, obviously now it's so long ago, so I was much younger and media was so different then. He carried a lot of weight I know for me personally, is like, if he says something, I'm listening to what he says. This guy knows what he's talking about. There might not have been anyone across the board in television, in sports, in NFL television at that time who would have more weight with what he said just because of what he was coming off of. It's different now. We have 8 billion talking heads and the people who break down tape and this. But in terms of getting that coach in that spot at that time, that was a very powerful thing for Fox to have.
It's like if you'd gotten Bill Belichick right after the first couple of Patriot Super Bowls.
Right.
Not later after he lost his touch. And I remember one year ESPN weirdly had Jimmy on the draft, and I don't remember quite how that happened. But Mel Kiper was like, Jimmy, how did you find all those players? How did you? Because Jimmy was still like this genius of the draft. Like he was not just a coach who won 2 Super Bowls in Dallas, but he was a guy who knew things about college football and about the NFL that other people didn't.
Yep, absolutely. And had a great personality. Perfect fit. I mean, the chemistry with him and Terry and
he was wacky. Or could I guess he was kind of more the straight man. Terry was more wacky.
Yep.
Here's the other question about Jimmy I had for you. Does Jimmy Johnson get on the Hall of Fame if he's not on Fox for nearly 30 years?
He should have, especially the NFL Hall of Fame where they let anybody in. I mean, out of all,
but are we sure he gets in the Hall of Fame? I mean, it took till 2020.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Being on Fox.
Yeah.
So imagine if he's not on television every Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially the NFL Hall of Fame, which to me has no credibility. Everybody gets in. So how would he not be in? I mean, he should have been in on the first shot, especially after, and look what the Cowboys have been since he left. Yeah, they won that one with Switzer. Those were all of Jimmy's players. Once Jimmy's players left, we know what's happened with the Cowboys. But but again, weird though. Like at the Super Bowl, he didn't know he was retiring, but on March 2nd, he knew he was retiring. But
and I feel he's made noise about this, recently. Yeah. He's always been the guy. I mean, I think Terry and Howie are in it for a while, right? Still in it. Jimmy's always been the guy I feel is that, I'm doing year to year, contract to contract. I'm kind of thinking about this.
Yeah. Well, it's what you said about Terry being in it. I do wonder how long Terry is still going to be in it, because if you watch the show, you can make an argument that maybe he shouldn't be in it. And I don't want to say that in a way that's cruel, but it's a little rough with Terry these days. So obviously with Jimmy retiring, there's all this talk about who's going to replace him. Now, first of all, you don't even need to replace him. I mean, they still have, it's Menifee, Howie Long, Terry Bradshaw, Michael Strahan, Gronkowski, and Jay Glazer. You don't need to replace him. I wrote a column just pure speculation of what was in my brain is I wonder if Fox is thinking, Terry probably has, I don't know, 1 or 2 more years left, maybe 3 tops. If Fox is looking at it where we would say to Terry, enough is enough. Why not put in a stopgap for a year or 2? Don't go for that big A-list person that Fox loves to get. And then when Terry goes, it's sort of the Terry Jimmy void to fill. And then by then Aaron Rodgers will be done playing. And that I think would be a guy Fox would definitely get all hot and bothered over.
Yep.
That's my theory.
I think that's the right theory. Again, and to me, if I'm Fox, I'm not telling Terry to go ever. Because again, I just think this is about people watch television because they like people that are friends with other people. And you notice the way they kind of brought Michael into the fold a little bit. Like he's our guy now. Okay, so he's friends now. He's an official TV friend. So he's okay. He's okay if you hang out with us. But that's just what TV's about. I mean, we saw this on Game Day, and it took a while for Game Day as Lee Corso was gotten older for, Pat McAfee to be part of the show, and then a McAfee-Saban relationship to kind of, in a way, replace the Herbie Corso relationship that was such a big part of that show. I mean, to me, that's what this is. So if I'm Fox, I'm just like, I mean, Terry was kind of, I think, the very first Fox Sports talent employee. I'm pretty sure they got him before they got John Madden. Like, he was in.
Right. So you don't think you think it's too dicey for Fox to say to Terry, it's time to go?
I don't think anybody would want to do it. I mean, again, I don't know what Eric Shanks thinks about this, but there's another guy who's a Fox lifer, right? And then Terry was Fox Sports. He is the last link besides Howie, I guess, to 1994. And so if you were to go to him and be like, get the hell out of here, I would find that very, very surprising.
Okay. So even taking the Terry Bradshaw aspect out of it, again, Fox doesn't need to fill the Jimmy Johnson role, but you would imagine if Rodgers became available, I don't think Fox is going to bother with I've read something like a Ron Rivera. That's not a Fox move.
No.
Look at Fox, Brady, Jeter, A-Rod.
Big Papi.
That's Fox. Yeah, exactly. So I would imagine they don't know Rodgers could retire today, but he may play a year, may play 2 years. And Rodgers has said he's not going to go into broadcasting, but he says things all the time that are just doesn't. If you're not doing Pat McAfee every week, if you don't want to be in the media,
you're interested in the media. Clearly, he is interested in the media.
Yeah, you think he had his own Netflix documentary. Oh no, don't give me any attention. So I don't know. People are throwing all these names out there, but I would imagine. I mean, look how Fox stealthily was able to bring Brady in the fold. I would imagine if they have a board in their offices there, I bet Rodgers is at the top.
I think so too. I mean, and to me, that's what you would do if you're them. One, with the star-driven philosophy, and two, as you point out, they just got a lot of people on the show already. So it has to be somebody that moves the needle. And I always thought, he, obviously went into an interesting cul-de-sac with all his stuff that he did on the McAfee show and off the McAfee show. There were some people in the industry at the time who told me, I think I'm out of the Aaron Rodgers business now, people that were enthusiastic about him being a broadcaster. But I also always heard that his fate was probably more on a pregame show than it was during a game just because of his affect. And
I heard the same thing.
Yeah, and I could totally imagine him coming into a show like that and being a needle mover. And he's a guy, man, if he starts talking about other quarterbacks or anything, you're like, I'm listening to this.
Right.
Whatever you think about Aaron Rodgers, I am listening to this.
Exactly. I have to believe that Fox sees the attention that he gets from his weekly McAfee appearances and the way Fox operates. I'm sure they're salivating to, try to get a piece of that with him. And they would do what they do with Brady. They put him on all those FS1 shows or whatever that,
As Coward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just makes too much sense there. This basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog. To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, points, assists, rebounds, blocks, and much more. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the NBA and picking Luka Doncic for higher on basically all of his stats, but especially points, rebounds. I think Luka will be motivated after the big trade. The narrative out there is that he's out of shape. He doesn't work hard. And I think that's going to push something in Luka. So I'm looking at him here on Underdog to go higher, especially points and rebounds. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code Sports Illustrated to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with the promo code Sports Illustrated. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. The other big story is this Belichick Hard Knocks thing. Now, when that story first broke, I flat out said, I know, like, this is, I said, there's no way it's going to go down like this. It just didn't make sense. And I think I said on Twitter, like, even if it happens, it's going to be an awful show. He's not going to give you, like, there was all this excitement. This is going to be a must watch. This is going to be great. He's going to give you nothing if he did that show. Have you not paid attention?
Yeah.
So, and of course, there is this element, which I don't even want to get into too deeply, but it's out there that the girlfriend is sort of pushing all this stuff. So who knows? I mean, I can't see Bill Belichick waking up one morning saying, let's make a deal with Hard Knocks and HBO. But and then it turns out where there was no deal with HBO and Hard Knocks. So What was your evaluation of that whole mess?
Well, what we'll always have Bill Belichick and Hard Knocks, which, you know, I'm with you. I couldn't really imagine him sitting around a fire pit with his girlfriend like Sean McVay did during the Rams season of Hard Knocks. It's kind of hard to imagine. I mean, the thing about him in North Carolina that's so fascinating is he does have to do PR in a different way.
Right.
Like Nick Saban, who is a Belichick guy and who was a hard ass, every bit a hard ass, a bit of a hard ass as Belichick was a guy who every time ESPN called Alabama was like, come on down, bring the cameras. You want to come to practice? You want to come to the lake house with me and Miss Terry? Let's do it. Like he was that guy to his players, but he was also very media savvy and understood that college football is really about marketing yourself. Even in the age of the NIL, you know, you really have to do that. So I'm always, you know, but we've seen a lot of Belichick like social media content, I feel, since he's been in North Carolina, sometimes on other people's feeds.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like he's into it.
But what would Bill Belichick being into it look like, Jimmy? I mean, do you think like he's being like Conan on the stage at the Oscars? I mean, he's not going to dance and sing.
No, but I mean, if his girlfriend asks him to, he might. I mean, that's what it seems like is going on here. I mean, listen, the fact that he has an Instagram account now, okay, you can make the argument he's doing it as a recruiting tool for North Carolina, but it is a little suspicious that he wouldn't even call these things by their real names, and now all of a sudden he has accounts. Like,
I think the other part of it is like he's going to be it's going to be short at North Carolina. Like it's hard to believe he's going to be there 10 years, right? We're thinking like a 4 or 5 year plan maybe. So I don't know. Like you kind of have to take advantage of the opportunities when they come. And that was the only thing that made me think maybe he would at least consider this. It is weird with college though, because it's not like the pros, you know, even though guys get paid sort of now, it's not the same. You know, it's just the whole language of Hard Knocks, would be completely different. Yeah.
I just think even if it would have happened, he's not going to give you anything. You know, there's no moment of if we don't re-sign Saquon Barkley, I'm going to be devastated. Like he's not naming names. He's not going to do any of that. So
it's true.
But there was
he would have been bad.
I saw a headline. I didn't read anything. I think I may have just been scrolling quickly and saw something about like the NFL owners didn't like the idea of Belichick doing Hard Knocks, which one, the NFL owner should stop worrying about Bill Belichick. And two, if there's not going to be an NFL team that's going to sign up to do the offseason hard knocks, why do the owners care if North Carolina is doing it? Because they don't want Bill to get some attention? Like, that's bizarre to me.
It is. They all had a chance to hire him. They didn't want to hire him. They wanted to hire, decorated coaches like Brian Schottenheimer instead. So, what are you going to do?
Well, I mean, Arthur Blank, I don't know how he sleeps at night. Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick, and what a disaster that was. All right, so no hard knocks. There hasn't been really a follow-up. I guess HBO, they haven't officially announced like that the off-season version is dead, but you'd have to imagine it's dead with.
Don't we think this has kind of run its course too? I mean, it just feels the last couple of years, and I don't dislike it at all, and I watch it. I don't think I've finished one in a while, or I'm trying to remember. Maybe I have.
Well, the franchise itself had definitely run its course. Was very tired. Was very lame. And then when they did the offseason one, that was excellent with the Giants last year because it was different
and newsy. And
yeah. But I don't think that's happening again. Other big news item to get into. It happened a couple weeks ago. I already talked about it a little on this pod with Marchand. The ESPN MLB breakup. The one thing that's new in that story is the Wall Street Journal had a report that ESPN wanted to cut their payment to MLB in a new deal from $550 million a year to $200 million a year. Now,
is that a lot?
I totally understand why ESPN doesn't need Major League Baseball, but that is a ballsy request.
It really is. And you understand if you're MLB to a point, you can't say yes,
Right.
I mean, who knows what Rob Manfred's going to pull out of his hat, if anything. This really has Pac-12 vibes to me. Remember when the Pac-12 was like, no, we don't need ESPN. Right. We got a TV deal or streaming deal right over here. And then everybody was like, actually, let's not have a Pac-12 anymore. I mean, that certainly has.
Well, the NHL, remember the NHL, when they left ESPN originally, it wasn't for NBC Sports. It was for like OLN. It was like the Outdoor Life Network or something like that.
Yeah, this was during the Versus period, right? Where they were.
Versus. Yeah, that was good. We'll
always remember Versus. And what a wonderful NHL coverage.
Who hosted a show? Wasn't there like a big name who hosted a show on Versus? I can't remember now. I got to look it up, but that was short-lived. But the Versus era was interesting, that's for sure.
It was. I mean, and I just, again, I am fascinated by what Manfred could possibly come up with. The big idea, and if you didn't get into this with Andrew, I'd love to talk to you about this, is just, he had all those lines in his breakup letter, like it's a shrinking platform, ESPN. Used to be 100 million. Now it's, what did he say, 50 whatever million or 70, whatever it is now. And I'm kind of like, okay, fair enough. But that's still tens of millions of people.
And more than any other sports platform.
Yeah.
Once you go to streaming, yeah.
And one question that is interesting, I think, in there is like, how much does ESPN set the sports agenda now? When you get it from so many other places, when you get it from podcasts, from like, the ones that you work with and the ones I work with, like there's just so many things out there. To what extent do you need ESPN in your corner just day to day being like, hey, big baseball game tonight, Yankees, Red Sox, got to watch this tonight?
I still think ESPN can drive conversation. As much as they used to, no, but I still think they can. I still think there's something to have. When they start going through it where there's a topic that gets hammered on Get Up and then into Stephen A. and then into McAfee, I think that helps. Baseball, though, is a tough sell. I mean, that line that you said that Manfred said about ESPN, what was the line? Not dying. What was the
shrinking platform?
Well, so is MLB. MLB is a shrinking league when you think about it. And what's interesting to me is I don't think losing baseball hurts ESPN in any way. I mean, let's break it down. Let's be real about this. It's no Sunday night baseball. Okay, that is not going to make one iota of difference to ESPN. It's not like those games were drawing 5 million viewers every Sunday. No one watched those games. And then it was it's the wild card round. That's where ESPN gets hurt here. It's the wild card games. That was where they didn't do anything past the wild card game. It's not like they had the entire playoffs. I guess home run derby, but Fox will pick that up or whatever. And
Yeah.
if you want to watch that exhibition, you can. So I don't think losing Sunday Night Baseball is going to really do any damage to ESPN.
Yeah, and the only thought was, right, is that when you go over the top, when you have a streamer and you need people to re-up every month, right? You're just it's a different economic decision than it would be through cable. You're like,
Right.
do we need something to get us from spring, to NFL season? And their answer to that is probably, well, I think maybe Andrew wrote about this in his column, so I might be quoting him here, but you got the NBA, right? That gets you into the summer, and then maybe you can get through
the WNBA as well, and I think there was something else. But again, they could put 30 for 30s there or something, and they can fill it.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, it is amazing breakup because like they've been with ESPN since 1990. Right. And if you look back, the ESPN was NFL in 87 and MLB in 1990, and those are the two moves that really make them into a real network.
Yeah.
Like we're not just this bargain basement thing anymore. We have real sports that you can watch on here. I mean, remember what a vehicle baseball was for Chris Berman back in the day when he was calling games? Yeah. Like, that was his thing, going to San Francisco and calling Giants games and all that stuff.
Listen, there was a time there where you could make the argument the most important sports show for a sport, well, I shouldn't say for a sportsman, but the most important show for a baseball fan was Baseball Tonight.
100%.
Because that was how you got the highlights. That's where when Peter Gammons would come on, it was like, you remember when you were a kid and you'd watch TV and there'd be a special report with like the president? They'd be like, that's when Peter Gammons came on, that's what it was like, because he was going to tell you about a trade or a free agent signing. Like Baseball Tonight was huge. And not just huge in terms of popularity, but the importance of that show. That's how you got the highlights from every team around the league. Like that was it.
100%. I know. And it's just so funny now because they've got the same problem that the NBA does. And we could argue which has it more seriously, probably baseball, just because baseball's status in the world. But what's the thing that's going to get you to watch a weekday regular season baseball game or even a Sunday night game?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think 100%. I was going to say, I could see a Netflix or an Amazon or an Apple trying to get the package that ESPN is giving up. No one's going to go watch any of those games on Sunday night. They'll go to those streaming services when the wild card round starts. That's how it's going to work. So,
what do you think about ESPN picking up like RSN type stuff when their streaming platform starts?
Yeah, I know. Whenever the RSN thing comes up, it's so hard for me to wrap my brain around it because here in New York, we have Yes and SNY, which are not, they do well. Like they don't need to be saved by ESPN or these packages. So it's hard, but I could see, but again, I would imagine that would work for ESPN because not just for baseball, I would assume, would they get NBA and NHL from those RSNs? Yeah. So
maybe, you and I don't think I have to worry about this, but like, the RSN thing for people that are in cities where the RSN has blown apart, and all of a sudden they're like, how do I get Dallas Mavericks games? God forbid if that's what they actually want. But they basically have to pay a ton of money to get those separately now, right? You have to basically go buy those a la carte. So what if an ESPN could come along and be like, hey, we have that thing that you want. Again, this is a smallish segment of the population, and you get ESPN with it. That's part of it's part of this
makes
you get. That's an interesting idea, and maybe baseball is mixed in there because I just don't know what the other option is for baseball at this point.
It makes sense. That makes especially with ESPN going to the direct to consumer, that would make a lot of sense to do it that way for them for sure. Yeah. You got to give people a reason to spend the money.
Yeah, because ESPN has a certain thing to sell for people that just are going to buy it, that don't have YouTube TV, that don't have cable, that don't have anything else. But what if you could get other people that say, okay, I want this local thing, but also I want tons of college football and the NBA and all that other stuff that I'll get, and not around the horn, apparently.
Did you see the story? So I didn't dig into the full story, but there was a tweet about a senator from Ohio is introducing legislation to ban the Ohio State football game from airing exclusively on a streaming service because I guess they had maybe a game on Peacock last year. So So I don't know anything about that politician. I don't know if Democrat, Republic, whatever, but it's good to see one politician out there doing something good for the fans.
Could I have a little history here? Because when I was at the University of Texas,
please.
and this is not ancient history, folks.
Oh,
not
the
that
Longhorn
ancient
Network.
No, well, before that even. I'll take you back. Before Longhorn Network, I was there, and it said we had a game every year in the cable era. This is in the late 90s on pay-per-view. Like there was
I think I remember that. And it wasn't like $59. It was some crazy price.
It was expensive. It may have been like $39.99 or something, but like again, in 90s dollars, that's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a game a year on pay-per-view. And you either had to come to the stadium if you were in Austin, or you had to if you wanted to watch every Texas game. So I think, again, I understand the streaming thing. It is a pain. You and I think have the same opinions on that. But folks, there's so much more sports available than there was 20 years ago. At the drop of the snap of a what's my metaphor here? At the click of a button. There we go.
I don't even want to get into this because it'll be a long discussion. But I wonder if that's actually hurt sports though, having it all available. Because I remember when it wasn't available. When there'd be a regular season NBA game on TNT, and you wanted to watch it. Now, who cares? So,
well, that goes to what you and I are talking about with MLB and NBA. When there was a game of the week on the weekends, and you just couldn't watch everything, it did feel special.
Absolutely.
And they would really invest storytelling and being like, "Here's why you need to watch this. Here's why Sean Kemp and Charles Barkley are awesome, and that's why you need to watch this thing on Sunday afternoon." Like that makes sense. But okay, we're not going back to that world. So how do we make those games feel special in the world we're actually in?
Yeah. I also read something that said NBC Universal might be interested in the package because then they would have like a Sunday night baseball game because they already have Sunday night football. They're going to have Sunday night basketball. And that is flat out dumb for two reasons. Don't compare baseball to football, number one. And the other thing is, I also wonder, this is going to sound crazy. People probably think I don't know anything about TV after saying this, but I actually don't. I think they'd be better off putting the quote unquote Sunday night package in a different time slot or day. Because it's the summer, it's spring and summer. Sunday night, yes, so many people take off in the summer. Sunday night, it's not like you in the summer, like, oh, I'm got to be home Sunday night, get in bed, get ready for the work week. And maybe that works for football. It's in the winter. In the summer, I think it's different. People stay outside longer. People are eating outside. You don't have to be home at 8:00 to watch a regular season baseball game in the middle of summer when it's light out till 9 or 9:30. They're better off, I think, doing that. If they can get like an exclusive game during the week, or even, I'd even try like a weekday afternoon, like make it a big deal. I don't know, 4:00 or something Eastern or something like that. I think the mindset of the Sunday night time slot for baseball, it works for football, but for baseball, I don't think it needs to be Sunday night baseball.
I agree with you. I would just, and hey, here's an opportunity to rethink it because our partner just left, wanted to pay way less than decided
exactly.
They didn't want to be in business with us at all anymore.
Exactly. All right. Before we wrap it up, so were you at Radio Row this year? Because you always have the best assessment of Radio Row every year from the Super Bowl.
I was.
Give
first
me your
of all,
assessment.
It's now called Media Row, which is not really a name change I recognize. We
call it Radio
Row. You
Row.
are a child of radio and still an adult of radio. Like I appreciate the form, so I don't need the name to be changed.
Right.
I'm amazed at how they've just pivoted to video though. And you and I are speaking right now on a video podcast. The Ringer is part of this revolution, but like everywhere you go now, it's not like two dudes from Dubuque, with engineer sitting next to them. Everybody has cameras now. Yep. So everything, and so now once you have cameras, that means the players who are going station to station have more props. Like, Gronk is not only wearing a Bounty letter jacket, but he is holding a plate of chicken wings, and he's going to eat the chicken wings and then wipe his hands with Bounty towels while you do the interview. So everyone is top, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
everyone is a prop.
Walking around with props. Oh my God. Did you see Gronk go from show to show with that stuff?
I did.
Yeah, because I heard him on Russo.
Yes, I was standing there when he was doing Russo.
Okay. Because Russo being Russo doesn't do like a formal introduction. He's like, we got Gronk here with the bounty and the chicken wings. Like, and as a listener, I'm going, what is he talking about? Like, okay, I can get that Gronk is there to promote bounty. Why is he mentioning chicken wings? And Dog goes right into, he's like, Gronk, tell me about Travis Kelce. And then he go, and Gronk's like, wait, this chicken wing is so good right now. And Doug's like, oh, Gronk with the chicken wings. I'm like, yeah.
I was so, having been a witness to this, I was fascinated by how patient will Mad Dog be with the chicken wing bit before we get to answer some actual football questions.
But
like,
again,
how much does he want this?
Right. But and my thing is, it's not that you have Gronk walking around like a clown with bounty and chicken wings, and then it's that he does it on the same bit goes on every show that he does.
And that's what's considered successful on Radio Row. Like, as you and I, as people who actually like content and radio and, good discussions, that sounds like hell. But on Radio Row, if you can just do the bit 800 times, you win. You were a good contestant of the game show that is Radio Row.
Right. And it's funny, I had gotten tweets from people that week because I have a big New York, I shouldn't say big, but a lot of my people who listen are from New York because I'm from New York. And WFAN didn't send one show to Radio Row this year. And I had people on Twitter like, don't you think it's a problem? And if you listen to any of the shows that week, it's just not a problem in any way, shape, or form. You don't have to be at Radio Row.
I remember talking to Al Dukes about this once, who produces Boomer in the morning. And it's like, he's just like, why would I do that?
He's right. He's 100%.
Wake up at a crazy hour, I mean, I guess not too bad in New Orleans, but like, when it's in Vegas or in the West Coast, but it's also just like, what's the point? I just think everybody who misses out on it doesn't miss it.
Yeah. I mean, well, think about it. If you're the Boomer and Geo show in New York and you don't have a New York team in the Super Bowl and it's in another city, what are you getting out of being there? Maybe one or two valuable guests during the week? You're not getting more than that. So,
but here's the magic of Radio Row, Jimmy, and I've been trying to lure you there for years, just because I think I need another pair of boots on the ground. And I'm not sure Santa Clara is going to be the winner next year, but I'm gonna keep trying. It is cool. I will tell you this: for all the commerce, for all the just sleazy selling, you're just standing there on a Thursday, and it's just like, wow, Joe Montana just walked by me, and I don't mean like behind a rope. I mean, he's just walking around, and there's Emmitt Smith. And there's Jaden Daniels. And it's like, this is kind of badass. Like, this is pretty neat.
Who was the biggest non-athlete who you saw there this year?
I saw Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy. I mean, I think if we're just talking like in terms of social media tonnage, I think she probably beats everybody on Radio Row. I'm trying, Jeff Ross was there, and I was like, man, that's a good 20 minutes. If you had a radio show, I'm not even sure what Jeff Ross was promoting, if anything, but I was like, if I had 20 minutes, you ask him about the Brady roast, he does some funny.
He'd work better though podcast than radio show, because he might have to get beeped or dumped a few times. I had this on the list of topics to bring up if we had time, and you mentioned Call Her Daddy and Alex Cooper, which she started obviously at Barstool and then went out on her own. So I'll throw this out there because it has to do it a little bit with Barstool, but the show Bussin' with the Boys left Barstool and they went to FanDuel, and I guess strictly from what they said because of the money, which, I mean, these gambling companies don't even get me started. But what I found interesting about it is, I would love to know what the financial difference was in the Barstool offer compared to the FanDuel offer, just from the standpoint of, I would think one of the things that would appeal to the people who work at Barstool, and especially a show like that with the two former players, is you can do whatever you want, have 100% freedom, and there's no limits, there's no rules. I don't know exactly what FanDuel's rules are, but I would imagine they're not going to let someone be at 100% freedom like Barstool. So are these gambling companies just coming in with financial offers that people just cannot turn down in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I think there's a lot of money floating around, and it's not just, by the way, not just gambling companies. I mean, SiriusXM has been on some of these podcasts. I mean, that's not what we would consider like, a vanguard of new media company. And they're coming in, Amazon, all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of money flowing around. I mean, the question with pods to me, it's always interesting, is why would you buy it if you were going to tell them what to do?
Right.
Because isn't the whole
100%.
point of a podcast is like, it's a little rough around the edges. They're kind of doing what they want.
Right.
The audience feels like I'm getting a real show. I'm not getting a filtered show here.
Right. I think if you are at Barstool, the luxury you have is that I don't think people tell you what to do. You can do what you want. I would love to know what the FanDuel, if there's like involvement, or if FanDuel says, do the show you did, we'll leave you alone. I'd be fascinated to know the answer to that.
Who are the other people that have graduated from Barstool? McAfee. He's positively there, right?
McAfee.
Busting with the Boys, Call Her Daddy.
There's one or two others.
It's a pretty big list. Those are some big pods.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, absolutely. Really big pods. Those are top 10, top 5 podcasts.
You were at Radio Row. You didn't go to the Combine, didn't you?
No.
It would have been nice if you were there for the Jordan Schultz, Ian Rappaport. Starbucks.
Oh my God. That was my favorite story, because I had just been talking to an NFL writer the week before, and he goes, the trick at the Combine is you post up at Starbucks, because the coaches come in, the agents come in, you make contacts that, oh, hey, great to see you. Tell me some gossip. And then somehow we not only have a confrontation between two NFL writers at a Starbucks, but one of them's dad was the CEO of Starbucks.
Right. I didn't know that. I did not know that about Jordan Schultz. I learned that in that. I mean, listen, it's just so ridiculous.
And NFL security was called, like, seriously, we needed to call security with this.
But I find it very curious. There's no video footage.
There was that picture.
Yes, there was a picture. But as someone who, and I'm not proud of this, as someone who spends too much time scrolling through TikTok every day, all you see are videos of fights in places. And then the one fight I would like to see the video of, I guess maybe because it was verbal and not physical. Maybe
we didn't actually have a throwing of hands, did we?
Yeah, but NFL security was called, so something had to be.
Yeah, I mean,
not
I
good.
say this against your interest and mine as people who cover the media part of sports, but I'm not sure anybody really cared to get the video footage of that.
Oh. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure
nobody could have been a TMZ level thing that somebody would have been paid and they would have gotten the video.
Yes.
But with us, it's like, who gives a care?
Yeah.
It's two sports writers, but it was an awesome story.
But I just wonder, like, if either of them sits back, and I guess Jordan Schultz was the aggressor from what you read, who knows? But if you're getting into confrontations at Starbucks over Matt Stafford, remember what Woj said after he retired? Nobody gives a shit about anything we say, paper. Any story we broke. Yeah,
I know. I mean,
and the argument was whether Brady and Matt Stafford had set up the meeting in Montana or they just ran into each other. And get your latte and just leave. I mean, really, it's not that important. It's really not.
That's what it is. It's not like, hey, you have different values than I have, or we're arguing about some moral or political thing. It's like, no, we're arguing about whether he really bumped into Brady or he fake bumped into Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said there should be a reality show about Starbucks, because you see the most insane thing, between what people order, the way people treat the people who work there, the people, what you see in Starbucks is surreal. And now here you have two NFL writers. Well, one writer confronting it about Matt Stafford. And obviously there were people around, because it seemed like the details of the story ended up coming out pretty quickly. So
I was happy to get some social media content that wasn't just people eating the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo. Guys, we're all good on that. And we've been all good on that for a decade now. So thank you very much, everyone who played.
Yes.
Please be more interesting.
We got it about St. Elmo for sure. All right. I appreciate you coming on. There's a lot going on, so I think we covered all of it. When I had Marsh in on a few weeks ago, and I said to him, are we really going to do 4 years of is Stephen A going to run and Stephen A for president? Let's save that for the next time you're on, because
I got
it's still going, but
and it will go. It will go. I don't think he's going to run or be president. I'm happy to go on the record there, but this as a thing, this will be a thing for a long time to come. And I feel like enjoy it being a thing.
Right. I feel like every single time I have you or Marshan or Oran on, I'm going to say like it was Stephen A for president. This is still going on, and it'll still be going on. So.
Answer yes.
Yes, clearly. All right, Bryan, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Thanks.
As always, Jimmy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right. Joining me now after a 1-week hiatus. So much to get to. My buddy from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York. And now with 2 functional eyeballs, Sal Licata.
I don't know if I will ever have a week quite like I had last week that involved a Disney trip and then an eye surgery. But here we are. We've made
and
it.
We will get into it all. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm just going to lay this out for everyone right now. I'm dying over here. Sorry. Basically, this is going to be 3 segments. We're going to get into Sal's Disney trip and his cataract surgery. We will talk about the John Cena heel turn. And then we have to read the reviews from February.
Okay.
Thank God there's really nothing important going on in sports. I was trying to think like, is there anything in sports we really need to discuss? But the tournament still doesn't start for 2 more weeks. So there's nothing there. NFL, some transactions going on, but that's really going to be next week when everyone starts signing. So there's really nothing there. There's one thing, there's two quick things from the world of sports I'll get into quickly. I know your answer on this is going to be no, but for me, I just want to say I am very, very into watching the Lakers since they got Luka. Every time they've been on TV, I've watched them, and I love watching him and LeBron together. That trade's going to end up helping the league a lot because people in the playoffs are going to be very intrigued. Listen, the Lakers are like, the Yankees and the Packers and the Cowboys, they have that name thing, but they're playing very, very well, the Lakers, and Luka there. It's the games are very fun to watch. His passing is ridiculous.
Don't you watch them anyway because of LeBron?
I haven't as much this year.
Okay.
But every single time they've been on TV since Luka's been there, I've watched them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not into it yet. Postseason time, sure. I do follow it along on social media. I'm not watching the games, but I don't think you could avoid it. Like, I'm not following Lakers specific or Luka specific, but it hits me in the face every time the guy plays.
Yeah.
The highlights and everything that's going on. So I see the magnitude. I understand the magnitude of it in the NBA.
And meanwhile, nobody talks about it. It's complete insanity that no one talks about it. But like, LeBron is having one of his best. LeBron is averaging 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 8.5 assists a game. The guy's 40 years old.
What was he? Wasn't there an issue on social media last week, or was it this week? I saw him he said he tweeted something, and I was like, "Where did this come from?"
He can play. So, I guess Anthony Edwards of the Timberwolves had said he doesn't want to be the face of the NBA.
Right.
And LeBron defended him and said, "Why would you want to be the face of the NBA when all the people covering the NBA basically just shit on the NBA all the time? The current version and the current players."
Right.
And then Stephen A. Smith said, "Well, clearly he's talking about me." So then Stephen A. Smith went on a rant about LeBron saying that.
Oh, God. Okay.
You didn't miss anything significant. It was all nonsense.
Yeah, I was trying to put it together. It is ridiculous. I also don't agree with that. Everybody that covers the NBA says it's crap. But whatever. Either way.
Well, but now, here's the thing. I enjoyed the NBA more years ago when the Knicks and the Heat and the Knicks and the Pacers would play 74, 72 games. Then I enjoy the current product. I'm allowed to have that opinion. Right. Sorry, I'm allowed to have that opinion.
Let me ask you a question. Is that because of that's when we grew up and we love those 90s Knicks teams, or is it because it was an actual better product, more competitive style of basketball?
I think it's several reasons. It's not one reason. But in my opinion, the games are way, way, way more intense back then than they are now. And you felt like the players hated each other. Today, they're all friends with each other. And you didn't have load management. You didn't have 5,000 3-pointers in a game. It was just a totally different game. So, sorry, maybe the athletes are better today. You want to say that the athleticism is that and all? That's fine. I enjoyed the game back then, and I'm allowed to have that opinion. Sorry.
Right, exactly.
The only other sports topic we've gone through this before, and never remember. Do you subscribe to Apple TV?
Yes.
Okay, so you're okay then with all the Mets have like 3 games exclusively on that Friday night Apple nonsense. I wanted to see if that would get you to
Yeah,
blow
but
back.
we've talked about this over the years. I for whatever reason, yes, I do have Apple TV Plus or whatever it is, but those Friday night games on Apple are annoying to me. I don't want Apple for sports. I want Apple to go watch Severance or whatever shows that they have on Apple TV that I like watching. So, which are a lot of good ones. And because then it's a different broadcast team. I like it's one thing if it's a national ESPN call. The Apple TV guys doing the Mets, I have an issue with it. So while I have access to it, I don't love those Friday night games.
All right, good. I want you to be salty about
it. You have it or no?
I don't have it.
All right.
That was the one
shows on there.
The 2 streaming services I ended up canceling were Apple TV and Paramount. I have all the others.
Why do you even have those 2?
Well, Apple TV. Why did I get Apple TV? There was something on there. Ted Lasso, maybe? Is that on there?
Yes.
Yeah, and something else. And then Paramount, I had, I think maybe. Oh, The Real World did like a reboot. Yeah. I think that's what made me get that.
It almost got me. Almost. I was like, oh, man, I held out.
Yeah, it got me. All right. Let's get into the Cena thing, and then we got to catch up with you and then do the reviews. I'm just going to give you my full experience with it. And then you can chime in here. You weren't not watching it live, I assume.
Correct.
Okay, so I wasn't either. Let me give you because this is like, I have to say the coverage WWE has gotten from this has been insane. Like Jon Stewart on the Daily Show Monday night did a full breakdown of Cena turning heel and using clips of First Take talking about Cena turning heel. Like that's how big this is.
Huh.
And I want to preface this by saying, I understand this was this massive, massive thing, and it's been nothing but a success. So what I'm about to say is just my own take, because I understand they're not trying to cater to me, but I'm going to give you everything, because people have asked me for my reaction on Twitter, and I said, I'm saving it for the podcast, because I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Wasn't watching it live, was out with friends, went to dinner with friends. My niece texted me and said, John Cena turned heel. So I said, all right, let me get on Twitter and see what's going on here. So when I found the video of him turning heel, again, I'm not happy with this, but this is how my brain works, and I can't change it. This is just the way it is. When I saw the video, I see The Rock and Cena and Cody, and there's another person in the ring. And my entire focus was, who is that person? I don't know who that person is. Why is that person there? So then I'm like, I need to find out who this is. So now I get off that video of the heel turn, and now I'm searching Twitter to find out who's in the ring. And then I find out it's Travis Scott, who I wouldn't know him if he fell on me. I don't know one song. I don't know anything. I just know he's a rapper. Don't know anything else. So I had a bad taste in my mouth from that, because people on Twitter are saying, like, this is the most historic thing that ever happened in wrestling. How could it be historic if Travis Scott is in the ring? So now I go, okay, well, now let me go watch it. Watched it. Saw the heel turn. Okay. It was, shocking. And I think what the WWE should be very happy with and get credit for is nobody knew it was coming. It was a big surprise. It wasn't out there like this may happen. That's what you want in pro wrestling more than anything. And I have zero issues with the Cena heel turn. None whatsoever. They sort of had to do it because if they were going to have Cody face John Cena at WrestleMania, you needed one of them to be a heel. The only issue I have, and it has nothing to do with Cena, is with The Rock, who's a big part of this from this standpoint. Last year, they really had no choice but to turn The Rock heel. They had to do it because last year was about one thing and one thing only, and it was Cody Rhodes finishing the story. They had to get the belt on Cody. They had to finally let Cody beat Roman Reigns. And even though it was supposed to be The Rock and Roman Reigns, and they had to make the change. So that heel turn for The Rock made sense from that standpoint. My issue now is The Rock is on once in a blue moon. He's not on. He's on once in a while. It's not a regular thing. If he's only going to be on once in a while, I don't want to see this version of The Rock, whatever this final boss and him making and him telling Cody he wants his soul and all that. I want The Rock with the microphone being funny and singing songs and mocking people and people and giving us the old Rock. Not into this Rock. That's my, so like The Rock is there and his sole purpose is he stands in the ring. Cody cursed him out and then he gave a throat sign. No, Mike, no, I want the funny, The Rock is the most entertaining figure in the history of pro wrestling. I want him to entertain me. This is not doing it for me. Him just being final boss because he's on the board. Like, just give him a microphone and let him cook. That's my take.
All right. So now I have a couple of questions here. I'm not going to get into the Rock part of it. I don't know anything. I know fringe stuff about it. Haven't watched enough. Heard that he's been rusty, whatever. Okay. Number one, did we ever find out why Travis Scott was there?
I have no clue. No clue whatsoever.
I mean,
and on top of that, you know, he punched Cody in the face for real. And now they're saying Cody has like busted eardrum and some nonsense. Like the guy doesn't know what he's doing.
You sure that's like that?
That was a Dave Meltzer report, I believe. So I tend to trust it, but that's besides the point. And so I still, 4 days later, I have no idea why he was in the ring or what he was doing.
And you don't know that you don't remember him dating Kylie, I think it was Kylie Jenner. I think. I'm just saying that. I mean, that's how I know who he is.
Okay. I just know he's a rapper. But I mean, if you're going to start quizzing me on the Kardashian boyfriends, I'm going to struggle. I go back to Reggie Bush with Kim Kardashian. I know. I don't keep up with the Kylie and Kendall.
I'm pretty sure that he dated one of the, I think Kylie, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway. Okay, so here's my thoughts on the Cena, the heel turn. Like, I don't watch the current stuff enough to be like, wow, I was shocked by that. But just from an outside perspective, I'm not buying it. Too much has been put in to Cena being the company's greatest face ever. And I think that the time to maximize that turn would have been, if not in the middle, but toward the end of when he was still a regular contributor where no one would have seen it coming. Whereas this feels like it's the final stretch. We haven't done it yet. Now let's do it. Even the face that he made doing it, like I'm sure wrestling fans got into it and they did, and it was cool. For me, knowing a little bit about Cena years ago, I feel like they really could have turned the wrestling world on its backside if they did it then as opposed to now.
Yeah, because even now, I mean, I get why if excuse me, if the WrestleMania main event is Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, I get why they would want one of them to be a heel.
Sure. So,
and I get the shock aspect of it. So I have no issue with that. But you make a good point in this regard. He's only here for the calendar year of 2025. So, at some point they got to turn him back face. So I do think this is only a a WrestleMania thing.
Right. Which is not the right thing. Like, and then I saw there were comparisons to Hogan, which, by the way, at that particular time, I didn't watch it live either. I was already out by then. But obviously, since then, I've seen all the specials. I know all about it. It's not comparable to that.
No, it's not. It's totally different.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere, and it was believable that he would turn like that in a different company and do what he did and then maintain that for years. Like, this just feels rushed and forced for a short period of time. While entertaining, I still, I think it could have been maximized better.
Yeah, I wouldn't criticize the WWE for doing it because, like I said, I think first, if he goes through this whole year without turning heel, then he's never been a heel in his career. So I get why you would want to do that. I get why you'd want to set him up. With Cody, they could also have it where at WrestleMania, he turns back face maybe and goes against The Rock if he helps. Who knows? I don't know. I would hope they don't have John Cena beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania and have a part-time guy become the champion. But there's this whole thing about a 17th title, which, I mean, I don't really take that seriously because it's
Right.
the script that's giving him the title. But
Right.
and then here's the thing about it that bums me out. Like they have the scene on The Rock, but they're never there. Like you had this go on Saturday, but neither one of them are at Raw on Monday night.
Is that in New York, by the way?
This coming Monday it is.
Are you going to that?
I think so.
Ooh, I saw a commercial for it maybe when I was watching one of these Cena clips, and I was like, oh, okay. But Cena and Rock won't be there?
I know the John Cena's like out of the country making a movie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's my whole take on that because people asked. All right. Let's get to last week. What was worse, Disney or the cataract surgery?
That's a great question. I would say that the cataract surgery was more challenging mentally for certain aspects of it. I'll give you the Disney trip real quick. Now, remember I told you there's really one bad story from Disney. But remember I told you the primary
you went to Disney.
What?
Yeah, you went to Disney.
Yeah,
that's the bad story.
It was actually nice. I don't know if it's the most magical place on earth, but it was nice. Now, we went for 3 days total. Sunday was great. We went to the Magic Kingdom, did all the character stuff, the rides. My daughter loved it. No issues.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Yes.
Good.
No issues. Taking pictures of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, all that stuff. Like all the rides, no issues. Went back at night. It was a long day. 2-part trip to Magic Kingdom, but long day. We did everything. It was as perfect as you could do. Weather was great. But do you remember the main reason why I was going on this trip now? Do you remember what I told you last week?
There was something you wanted to see. Was it the Muppets?
Yes. I wanted to take her specifically on this Muppet. It's not a ride. It's like you go see a 3D show.
Don't tell me it was closed.
It wasn't closed, but the next day after the perfect Magical Kingdom day, it was raining. So it's already crappy. We're tired. We're cranky. We just had the full day at the park yesterday. It's day 2. I forget what happened in the morning, but my wife was not happy with me. I probably said something stupid, trying to rush.
Let's not gloss over that. Let's not gloss over. I don't remember. You damn well remember. I really
don't, because I don't remember how it started. It must have been. I probably said something in a negative way that set her off, and we're both already like high stress. From the day before, looking at the day ahead, the rain. I'm rushing her a little bit, whatever it may be. That's
I won't follow up. I'll leave it at that.
It probably stems from me not being patient enough and she taking too long. Like there's Disney speed,
right?
And there's, you know what I mean? Like there's regular.
Oh, so
speed.
you were in like chop, let's move it along mode.
Yes.
Oh, now, okay. Now we got to the bottom of it.
In real life, she's behind anyway. Like I'm always the one that, come on, what are we doing? Yeah. Let's go. You said 10 minutes ago, I told you. And but this, like in Disney World or Disney Speed, it's like you better get going. There's rides to be booked, there's meals to be had, there's reservations to make, and she was lagging. And I probably let her know about it in a not so nice way, and that led to a not so pleasant trip to the next park, to Hollywood Studios.
Love it. And
I
can end the segment right here, and it's fine. But go ahead.
I'm trying to lighten up on the bus ride, and hey, take a picture. And she's looking away, and Sammy's smiling, looking. And
you gave her a chop, and that was it.
I know. So here's the worst part of the thing. We go to the Hollywood Studios. It's raining, and I'm like, all right, you want to go do the Mickey ride or the Muppet ride? We went to do the Mickey ride, but then there was a little bit of a wait, so we had to come back. So we go to do the Muppet show. Now I am like, this is it. Here we go. I'm taking Sammy to the Muppet Show. No issues the day before. And Sammy has some quirks that we're working on. And we get into the Muppet Theater or whatever. And we get, okay, everybody file in after waiting and watching a video. You file in, you go pick your seat. We sit down in the seat. And I knew at that point I should not have moved. But then other people started to move down. And I felt obligated to get up and also move down. So I did, even though I should have known my daughter better. She wasn't having it. She didn't like moving. It threw off her routine. Then the Statler and Waldorf things pop out of the wall, and she's going, no, put away. And it just set off a negative emotion to where she was losing it. I had to take her. out of the theater in the middle of the show. Now my soul is crushed. I'm devastated.
But looking back, do you think she was just too young to handle it?
No.
Okay.
No, I think she's got she's very routine, and if things aren't her way, it's a problem.
Right.
So I should have just known if we sat there, I think we would have been fine. She would have been excited. We told her what was coming. But once we moved, it threw off her routine. Then stuff started to happen, and she was not ready for it. She wanted to go back, retrace her steps. Turned out to be a disaster. I take her outside the theater. Then she wants to go back in. I take her in. She wants to go back to the exact seat. I said, we can't do that. Then we go out again. People are coming out. The door's opening. She's running toward the door, about to get hurt. So I'm yelling and screaming like a lunatic at my wife for not letting. It was just a mess beyond epic proportions for the one thing that I wanted to take credit
I can't sit here and laugh and make fun of that because, if your kid's having a meltdown, I've been there with my nieces. I know what that's like. But
right.
I will say, I mean, it's basically the one thing you wanted to do got destroyed. And
my wife was not understanding because I reacted with anger and frustration because I was crushed. Right. I'm devastated. Right. My soul has been ripped out. This is the one thing.
All right, it's the Muppets. Relax with your soul.
No. But that's what I went there for. That was it. That was the whole point for the trip. The one thing I wanted to experience was the only thing that blew up in flames. Eventually, she calmed down.
I was going to say, I'm more interested now in sort of the post game from this. Like, how long did it take everyone to get back to themselves and move on from the disaster?
A while. I'd say at least 25 minutes, half hour.
That's not that bad. That's not that bad. That's not bad. That's not bad.
I'm talking about the immediate aftermath was not pleasant. And then we eventually calmed down.
Were you causing a scene in public? Was there a public scene with people watching you?
Well, not necessarily me, but I think my daughter freaking out. Yes.
Oh, no one's going to do that to a kid. All right. No, because I'm thinking someone gets out the phone and starts filming, and then here's WFAN Sal Licata screaming at his wife at a Muppet show.
No. It wasn't that. Most of that screaming took place before everybody exited because my daughter was about to get crushed by the door. And
right.
People coming out.
Right.
We moved on, did the rides, whatever. Went on with the day. It was okay. And then before we left, I said, Sammy, do you want to go back to the hotel or do you want to do the Muppet ride? And she said Muppet ride, thankfully. And we went back, no issues.
But that's different from what you were at. That's not the show.
No, same thing. The same thing.
Oh, was it?
The Muppet Show. Yeah, whatever. You want to go see the Muppet Show or you want to go back to the hotel? She said Muppet Show. We went back in. We sat in the back row. She picked her seat. Good to go. She was loving every minute of it, excited about it. And that was
were you able to see the show, the actual show that you intended to go see?
Yes.
Right, so you had to deal with a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And get through it, and then
happy ending.
Happy ending, right? Exactly. Okay. All right.
But of all the things, like the day before, we did a million rides. We woke her up in the middle of the night to go back to the stupid Cinderella table to get a dinner at 9:00 at night, and she was perfect. The one thing that I took her on this trip for was a disaster.
But then you ended up
seeing
it. So focus on the positive.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And then your cataract surgery.
Yeah, that's
everything
not easy.
Went well.
Well, you would think it'd be easier because your second one, so your experience, but there's just as much anxiety and also knowing what to expect. It wasn't a pleasant experience having your eye cut open and going through the stuff to get there. But I'll tell you, it has been life-changing. I could not be more happy with the decision to do it with the doctor, Dr. Hilla Steinberg, who did it. I would not let anybody else touch my eyes. To have it behind me, it is a great relief and a significant improvement on my life.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. What a week. So you got home. Which day did you get home? Tuesday?
Yeah. Tuesday night we get home, and we get home to a gas leak as well.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, well, whatever. We don't need to go into the details of that, but just to add on top of the night before the second eye surgery, there was a gas leak outside.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You got home Tuesday. When was your eye surgery
Yeah,
scheduled
Wednesday.
for?
Wednesday.
Is the gas leak fixed?
Yeah, now it is. Yeah.
That's not good, a gas leak.
I understand. That's why I called the company that night, but whatever. Took a couple of days. We're back up and running. House is okay for now. Sammy's all good. Wife is all good, and the eyes are good. So we're okay.
All right.
It was a turbulent week.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I give you credit. In a way, I think you're deranged. Like, I would never be able to schedule a trip, get home Tuesday night, and then go have eye surgery on Wednesday. I need like 2 days of like sitting on the couch and doing nothing before I get eye surgery.
I get it. I just didn't really have I felt like I didn't have a choice. I had to jam it in. But anyway, mission accomplished.
All right. Well, I'm glad that worked out.
Did you watch the Oscars?
I watched the beginning because I love Conan O'Brien.
Okay.
So I wanted to watch his monologue. And then I just put it on TV2. And I think the only time I flipped it onto TV1 was when Kieran Culkin won, because I love him. And I watched that movie, which I didn't love. I didn't see one of the I didn't love the movie at all. And I didn't see one of the movies nominated for Best Picture.
Anora was, I hesitate to say piece of trash, but it was close.
Now I gotta see it.
And I saw it with my mother, my wife and my mother, and it was, I don't know if you know anything about it.
Isn't it about a stripper?
Yeah, it was bad. It was borderline porn. To a point where my wife said, you gotta shut this off. And we did. We stopped like 10 minutes in. We couldn't watch it with my mother. We put on something else. And then my wife and I finished it the next night or whatever.
And then you went and watched it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. This is terrible. All right, see you later. I'm going to turn on. Yeah. No, then we watched it because people were saying, my friend was like, oh, it's a great movie. And I like trying to watch some of the best ones. I did not think, I thought it was okay.
What was your mother's reaction to the 10 minutes she saw?
It was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable between my wife and I and my mother watching.
Did the three of you know the movie was about a stripper?
Yeah, but I thought it was going to be like a modern version of Pretty Woman. That's kind of the way that the preview read. Like some sex worker gets saved by whatever. That's not what, it was not like Pretty Woman at all.
So in the first 10 minutes, you thought you had Pornhub on instead of.
And then I'm thinking, all right, well, it can't get any worse than this. And it did. It just kept, it was the same thing. So.
Nora's on my to-do list. Okay, here we go. All right. B. Stuhler. Great show, 5 stars. I'm not into wrestling, but Triple H was great. The best guest has yet to appear. Sal's wife. Make that happen in 2025. I can assure you after this, it's just not happening. Okay. Motion City Man. Great guest. Better banner. Jimmy always has great guests week after week. Not a fan of wrestling, but enjoyed this week with Seth Rollins. Seth filled in for Sal when he got his first cataract on. One thing that made me fall out of my chair was when Jimmy was talking to Seth about the Royal Rumble and Seth mentioned betting favorites in Vegas. I understand the whole wrestling is fake is played out, but please don't tell me you can place wagers on scripted events. Keep up the great work. A once a month all Traina Thoughts with Sal would be top notch. You can't bet the WWE on like DraftKings and FanDuel, but they do offer it on the offshore sites. And there's like a $50 max, I think. So.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did they ever get it wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. The last pay-per-view, something happened where they got it wrong. I don't remember. EC1605. Jimmy, do you ever find yourself reaching for the phone when you do the betting commercials? That's, I guess, not really. I keep it professional. All right. SG Murthy. Sorry, I wanted to add one thing about Tom Brady. I feel Brady just isn't a natural on TV. Some people are not great on TV, and I feel he doesn't have the charm that other announcers have. I agree he's overall fine, but nothing great. A lot of people have said that they don't think Brady's a natural.
Yeah, he's not. You think
Fair
so
enough.
or no? I thought we had that conversation.
I think he's too coached, so that I guess would make him not natural.
Correct. Yeah.
Mop Sauce, 5 stars. Look forward to every week and banter with Sal. Can you spell Dan's last name right in the recent show title? I had Dan Rappaport on. I spelled his name wrong when we posted it. It got fixed quickly. I apologize.
Who even knows that? Who cares?
I like that. That's someone paying attention. That's fine.
Fair enough. I'm just
That's
curious.
fine.
Like,
I'll take the hit. They gave me 5 stars. All right. Jans 0830. Big fan of the podcast, especially the WWE guests. I was wondering, have you listened to the Talking Sopranos podcast? It's with Michael Imperioli and Steve Shrippa. It's well done. And as an avid fan of the Sopranos, I thought you'd enjoy it. I listen every Thursday morning as soon as the pod drops. Keep the stellar guests coming, and I will continue to give 5-star reviews. Peace and love. Peace and love. Here's what's funny about that. I had Steve Shrippa and Michael Imperioli on this podcast, and it was in 2020. And I have found that I often get requests for people who were on in that time period. And what happened was when COVID came along, the podcast industry as a whole took a massive hit because people weren't commuting anymore.
Right.
And I think 2020 is sort of like a lost year for podcasts because everyone's numbers went down in that year because of COVID. You would think people are home, they need something to do. But this was sort of before the podcast explosion on YouTube happened. This is 5 years ago now.
Okay.
So those podcasts, I had them on. So if you, but you know, Google it and maybe, you know, you can find it. Let me see here. Larry in Ohio. Jimmy, I very much enjoy your show. I look forward to it every week. Great guests and a lot of fun. I'm not a wrestling fan, but just skip those parts. No problem. A couple of issues. Love the segments with Sal. Love them. But SSL, enough with the bad language. I don't know what SSL means. Do you?
No.
Let me Google SSL. I don't know what that means. I don't know what this means.
We don't curse that much.
I don't think I curse that much at all on this podcast.
Occasionally, I would think.
I mean, there's a curse here and there, but I don't think it's, I mean, compared to when we're not on the podcast, it's nothing. I have no idea what it means. SSL. I can't even find it on Google.
SSL?
Enough with the bad language. I don't think we curse a lot at all on the podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. You're not tough. Not at all. Makes you sound, well, believe me, I know I'm not tough. I'm the biggest wuss in America. So I would not think that cursing makes me tough. That's a ridiculous analogy. All right. Let Deitch have his show. When he's on, he's constantly trying to one-up you, constantly. Oh, I don't want to let them have it. Look forward to the next podcast. All right. Leave Deitch alone. My God, everyone with the. All right. Blue Bear 21. Love the pod. Listen every week. The segments with Sal are outstanding. Definitely agree that Sal's wife needs to make an appearance at least once on the pod. 2 things. Can you post your Traina Thoughts articles to Blue Sky? I'm off the other site and not great about going directly to si.com. 2, can you 2 New Yorkers give my fiance a sales pitch on coming to New York in late spring, early summer from Northern California? She's never been, and I'm trying to convince her. A Maureen's mention would also be appreciated. Thanks. Keep doing what you're doing. The Blue Sky thing, I don't know. I haven't really thought about posting there. I can't add another social media service to my life. Like, as bad as Twitter is and horrific as it is, like, I don't know. Maybe I will. I'll think about it. I wish I could give you a better answer. In terms of coming to New York, I'll say this and I'll let Sal chime in. If you're going to convince your wife to come to New York, late spring, early summer is really like, unless you do it then or maybe late fall. Those are the times to do it. Once the summer comes, the humidity is out of control here and it's awful.
I need to know more before I just throw out a recommendation. Oh, yeah, sure. Come to New York. Like, what are you planning on doing? Because before you just have this whim to come to New York, we'll give you the advice on what you should do, where you should go, where you should stay away from. Like, if I were you, I wouldn't go anywhere near the actual city. Certainly, like, Midtown or anything like that. Anywhere near a warm month or anything like that.
Well, I would push back on that and say, if you come to the city, you want to see a show maybe, and that's in Midtown.
Okay, fair enough.
In terms of restaurants and eating, like don't go to
Square,
Midtown.
Maybe I meant Times Square. Stay
away from Times Square. Yeah.
That's like rule number 1. I don't know. Like, well, it's weird for us. Yeah, there are a million restaurants and great pizza spots, and maybe do a little, pizza crawl or something like that. You see a show, sure. Go to a ball game. You want to go to a Yankee game or Met game, I guess, right?
Yeah, listen, I would highly recommend coming to the city in that time frame because it's really nice here. And when you're here, you're going to walk around, so you want the good weather. I mean, you could come here and just do restaurants. Like, you go to New York City, don't go to any restaurants in Midtown. There's better restaurants all over the city. But, I mean, listen, I do think, like, we sit here because we've worked in New York for so many years. We say, oh, avoid Times Square. There are people who want to go to Times Square is thought of as sort of like the center of the earth. Yes, we think that way. My advice would be, if you want to see Times Square, to say like it's a bucket list thing because you're not from New York, get in and out fast. You don't want to stay there. And maybe walk through it when you go see a Broadway show. You got to go see a show. Maybe go see something at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what people do. I would recommend, me personally, September. If you could do it in September or October, to your point, I wouldn't go late fall unless you want to get into the Christmas thing, which I think the city around Christmas time is great. The problem is it's just so impossibly crowded. So you got to, deal with all that. But I love the city in the fall. And yeah, go see a show, go out to nice dinners.
Central Park. You got to go do Central Park.
Would you do Maureen's on Long Island?
Well, that's the thing. So for the person who sent that review, Maureen's Kitchen is not in New York City. The Maureen's Kitchen, which Sal and I have discussed a million times, the best breakfast place on Long Island, is like an hour and a half from the city. So I don't know how you'd get there if you're staying in the city.
Well, that's the other thing. You could do, depending on when you come, you could do the wineries out east on Long Island. Check that out. Like, there's two really separate things: the city or Long Island, and all that has to offer.
But I don't know how you do Long Island without a car. You got to have a car to do Long Island. That's the one thing they got to factor into the equation.
I mean, you could do it by train, but it's much more of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. All right. 2 more to go here, and then we'll get you out of here. PSY, no. As a listener of multiple sports podcasts each week, I'm a big fan of this one and of Jimmy Traina himself. Oh, geez. He seems completely authentic and down to earth. Listening to his takes and conversation with his many esteemed guests in sports media is not unlike interacting with a knowledgeable, passionate sports fan who also happens to be a humble, well-adjusted person. Who wrote this? My family has never said anything this nice. Happens to be a humble, well-adjusted person. That combination does not often happen in the natural world. If there were ever a labor union that was somehow devoted to the concerns of American sports fan, Traina would be my candidate to lead it. As I see it, he understands and represents our interests, tastes, and hangups better than any public person I know. Good grief. Lastly, if there's a well-known personality in sports broadcast, if there's a well-known personality in the sports broadcasting world, they will eventually sit down for an interview with Traina, and they usually seem to enjoy the conversation. Ditto for me each and every time. Good grief.
Hire that man or girl.
Whoever wrote that, like, send me an email address or a tweet or something. Let me at least say thank you. My God, that's just over the top.
Tell me.
Let me make sure he left 5 stars. Okay, take it. Actually, he left 4 stars at 3 stars. All right. Last one here from Doc Lou, Iowa. This is basically off of the pod last week with Jay Bills. Good interview with Billis, but how do you not talk about NIL? He was the biggest advocate for players being paid and even said they are still not getting market value. Really? I would have asked. Sanders made 5 times what Brock Purdy was making in the NFL. The fact that there is no cap is an issue. I would love to have heard his defense of the system without any rules. Also, regarding Yankee facial hair, Goose Gossage and Thurman Munson also wore mustaches. When did the rule become a thing? Reggie and Winfield also had mustaches. Regarding the 5-minute mile, it is exceptional regardless of age. I've run over 20 marathons, so I know what running times mean. Also, Malcolm Gladwell is the guy who challenged LeBron to a mile race. LeBron never accepted it. It would have been great. An older, skinny guy against LeBron. So the last thing about the 5-minute mile was Chris Chavez was filling in for Sal last week, and Chavez is a runner, and he has a running podcast, and he covers track and field, and he had talked about doing a mile in less than 5 minutes. So that's where that comes from. The facial hair we discussed last week, and in terms of NIL, this is not the podcast to listen to for that. I would rather take myself and throw my body into a running a bus going down 42nd Street than talk about NIL on this podcast. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Not my, I just can't. I find it beyond boring. So I apologize for that. But Billis was outstanding last week. If anyone is still listening to this week and you have not listened to last week, you have to listen to Jay Billis. He was outstanding. So
I did enjoy a lot of the clips that I saw that you posted with him.
Thank you. Good. I can't sit here and talk about NIL. I can't. I don't have it in me. I'm sorry. All right, Sal, we've covered everything. Good to have you back.
Nice to have you
back. Next week it'll be like the tournament. Baseball's coming, so we'll have some.
By the way,
Yes.
At some point, I don't know when, but I do think we can make the wife happen.
Don't throw that out there. Then I'm going to have all this pressure on me.
Yeah, no, I don't want the fans disappointed. If they really want it, we could, I'm sure, make it happen, even if it's just for a short little thing. But you could, at some point, maybe over the summer, whenever you feel like is the right time to.
The right time is never. It's the right time. I do not want to be responsible for a fight in the Licata household. Because if I start asking questions,
well, I need a script beforehand.
Right. Who wants that? We're not doing a pre-planned pod. All right.
Exactly. Like Fox with Tom Brady. I need to see the questions ahead of time, Jimmy, before we let that go.
I should have Shelby edit that out, because if people heard you say that she can come on, oh my God, now
what? I have no problem with it. You have to see if she's going to want to do it. But
I could see that being like a one question and done. So tell me about living with Sal.
How do you deal with him?
All right. We'll wrap up now. It's like, tell me about Sal yelling at you in Disney. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care. Oh,
what happened? Right? What happened the morning of the Hollywood Studios trip?
Yeah. All right, Sal. Glad you're back. Glad you're doing good. Take it
All
easy.
right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. All right. My many, many thanks to Bryan Curtis. My thanks to Sal Licata. My thanks to you for listening. Appreciate it. And if you've missed any recent episodes of this podcast, make sure you check them out. If you're a wrestling fan, we had a bonus pod earlier this week with MJF from AEW. Very, very entertaining, very funny guy. So check that out. And Jay Billis was on the podcast last week, covers college basketball, calls the games there for ESPN. He was tremendous. So if you missed Jay Billis last week, make sure you give that a listen. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and rate it and review it on Apple. All right, that wraps it up. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.